Well, obviously I work in a record shop, so I'm a big fan of music.
Yeah.
I've probably been collecting records since I was about like 15, and I've worked here and in HMV, and I've done record stores before.
Yeah.
I just love, I love music. It's not necessarily just about record collecting, but because I DJ, my preferred format is vinyl.
Yeah.
I DJ kind of funk and soul and reggae, but my tastes kind of vary.
Yeah.
I don't want to be this kind of audiophile guy
Why
about
not?
my record collecting, because I love music, and that's just, you know, if you love music, then it doesn't really matter how you listen to that music.
Yeah.
But the main thing is that you listen to it. But,
Absolutely.
But I love records just because that's the format that I've always collected.
Yeah.
You know, I have a few CDs and things like that, but the majority of my collection is all vinyl. 45s, LPs, everything across the board. But like my collection kind of varies from like reggae and funk and soul, but then there's also kind of classic rock stuff, and all the way from like country music to Ethiopian jazz. It kind of varies quite substantially. But yeah, I don't kind of take pictures of myself in front of my record collection like you see online, but like you know, it's just, you know, there are far worse things that you can waste your money on, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know,
it's a healthy obsession.
Yeah, and it's probably the in my collection, it's probably the things that I've had for most of my life. You know, things come and go and all the rest of it. But there's records there that I've had since I was like 16 years old, and I've still got them in my collection. So there's definitely a kind of a history to some of them, and there's records there that I probably don't listen to anymore, but they mean something to me.
Absolutely.
You know, they bring me back to you know, raving in the 90s or whatever. So, you know, I might not do it anymore, but then you'll play a record and then go, oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
You know, and that would be like 30 odd years ago that I would have been listening to it. But yeah, it's a kind of story thing.
Absolutely.
But yeah, my like collecting isn't a thing where I want lots of like rare records. It's just records that I love.
Yeah, I like most bands. I like genuine bands.
Yeah.
Some bands I like have just all done sort of cover songs.
Yeah.
Don't matter. Doro,
Oh, of course.
the second best female singer.
Who do you think's the best?
Oh yeah, Skin.
Of course.
What do I love about it? I just collected and that was it.
Yeah.
If I had the money and saw a record I want, I just bought it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not. Some so-called friends who are record dealers who stole most of my LPs.
Bastards.
But no, I'm not. I just like records and I like CDs and cassettes.
What's on the record player right here, Seema. This album's freaking awesome. If you haven't heard her, she's she's like kind of Irish, but like a bit like country. She's also like a bit crazy, a bit uncouth.
Yeah.
She's wonderful. Record collecting it's a different kind of experience with listening to music. You actually like pull something, you have to be very purposeful about it. You pull something out and you're setting it down to listen. It's not background noise. It's a more tactile, you know, kind of, there's more texture. It's a whole different experience than listening to music any other way. And plus, you know, the records look cool and you've got the album art and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I'd say this is probably my all-time favourite album that ever existed. The Roots.
How I Got Over. What do you love about it?
Just every single track is just so well thought out, and it's just got an emotion, and I think the record just takes me back to a place and a time that I used to listen to it, and every time I put it on it just brings me straight back. But it's Yeah, I'd say it's the emotion in this album more than anything that just brings me back to it every time.
Yeah, and you got any favourite tracks on that album?
Yeah, I would probably say Dear God is my favourite track on there. I love the tangible having something, and I think in a world where everything just exists on just a phone or just that's available at the click of a button, I think there's still something to be said that's really satisfying about physically having something that you can hold, you can touch, you can look at, you can feel, you can put it on. And I think because it makes it more special, because you don't have every single record in the world, it makes it more special. The records that you do have really mean something to you. It's not like a playlist on Spotify where you don't even know half the artists that are on that playlist probably. When you've got a record collection, it's very, you've paid, like records aren't cheap, let's be honest. So you've paid good money to have those records. So they're definitely the ones that mean the most to you. And I think they kind of almost tell a bit of a story about you as well. And it's just something, I'd say it's just really satisfying physically holding and having something. And it's something that we miss a lot from this modern day world where everything's digital and people still love having printed pictures. People still love having these things that mean more, like a printed picture means more than an album on a phone because that's the one you chose to print, that's the one you chose to have. Same with the vinyl, it means more than just your playlist on Spotify because that's the song, that's the album that you've decided to pay for and have as a separate thing. So it kind of, it's quite satisfying, I think, just having those things that you've bought in front of you that you can put on and listen to when you want.
Yeah. Do you think that the more that society is focused on apps, music apps and all that, do you think that encourages you to love records and record collecting even more?
Potentially, I'd say it helps you see the value in it, for sure. It's difficult because you find artists through Spotify and through digital platforms, and then you go out and you buy their album and you buy their... So it also helps educate you into new artists. It doesn't mean that the digital way of working is not a good one. You still just pick the best parts of that and bring it back to an analog style place where you physically own it again. But I mean, you've got to think all of these artists, modern artists, our record sales are through the roof at the moment. They're promoting all of their music through digital platforms, but they're still getting the release through people purchasing their physical records. So I wouldn't say it's hard to say which affects which, but I'd say that I'd say having the digital platforms there definitely maybe pushes me more to get vinyl, I would say, yeah.
Little bit of Elton John.
Yeah.
The one I regret I haven't got is Yellow Brick Road. Band on the Run, Paul McCartney. That obviously came out at the time.
Yeah.
That was recorded in South Africa, I believe.
Ah.
Well, initially, I would say when I first started, it was the only format available.
Yeah.
That was solid.
Yeah.
So therefore, but also with vinyl, you get the artwork on the album sleeves.
Yeah.
So the whole package,
Absolutely.
you know, is probably what draws most people into record collecting.
Were there any records that you remember thinking because of the artwork that made you pick it up because you loved the artwork so much?
Yes, I think certainly the Moody Blues,
Yeah.
all of their albums, the artwork was all done by the same artist,
Nice.
and that certainly draws you in.
Finding the rare record, including artwork. To me, the artwork is just as intriguing. Discovering an artist that nobody knows about. I'm not so interested in the well-known names. I always find it intriguing to find like an old record that, you know, the artist got signed, had the album came out, and then never heard from them again. Maybe they didn't market him or her. Whatever the reason is, it goes under the radar, but it's so good, you know.
Yeah.
It's just a good record. Working with record collectors, their passion, their stories, where they find them, who they got them from, having worked in a record store,
Yeah.
and where we would purchase the collections. Again, people selling the records had interesting stories.
Yeah.
I'm unique in the sense that I come to you from my experience was the early 90s in Los Angeles when records were first going out and DVDs were coming in.
Right.
So some people were still passionate about records and others were just dumping their entire collection. And I was kind of a conduit between the guy that was dumping his collection and the guy that wanted the collection, because now you can't even buy the record. They stopped making the record. So I was in the busiest crossroads of it all. Just volumes and volumes and volumes and volumes of vinyl. People dumping thousands of records in their collection and people buying that collection. It was a pretty wild time in vinyl, and that would have been about 1990, 91, 92, and a little bit of 93. Yeah, crazy time.
Ooh, what is that?
It's the Glenn Millier's Reader's Digest collection. So I think like the actual physical act of like going in and finding something.
Yeah.
I think it's it's obviously so easy just to get something digitally, but like the act of, especially if it's a charity shop or kind of sifting through loads of them and then you find something either that you really like or something you've never heard of, and then kind of get that joy of discovery, which I think is sort of a slight lost art. But then listening to a whole album as well, sort of as it was meant to be listened to, so you get the narrative, you get the story, and I think with a record, like Reagan says, it's so purposeful, you're putting it on specifically to listen to it, and I don't think you get that with Spotify or sort of.
Yeah, I feel like the record's like a treasure. You know, it's like you've got this treasure that you've found and that you've sourced, and you're putting it on to like enjoy.
And even with a CD, you could put it on shuffle, but it's like you have to listen to this in this order.
Absolutely. I totally agree, because it's also, this is how the artists wanted us to listen to it. So, you know, they know best because that's theirs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's their art.
The business side of it is obviously we rely on record collectors.
Absolutely.
You know, and the more serious they are, and the more pedantic they are about getting the right matrix number on the runoff groove and things like that, is what keeps us going, really.
Yeah. So the more obsessive the collector,
There's a lot of obsessive record collectors, yeah, that's right. And we regularly, perhaps once a day, get somebody in with a CV and they say, I'd love to work in a record shop. And I said, well, you might think you would, but sometimes people examining every little last thing about a record to see whether it's different from the one they own.
Yeah.
It might actually pull your mind elsewhere.